Hello music fans, you're watching Death by Unicorn, where I talk about metal, rock, and prog music, and this is What's New 2024. Today I'm going to talk about 4 albums that came out on July 12th, 2024, and give my first impressions on them, and I'll talk about them in my order of preference, starting with Windwaker and their album Hyperviolence. This is the second album by this Australian band. It's metalcore with alternative rock and hip-hop influences. And I'm going to put this in my very good tier, which is my 4th highest tier. This week I didn't hear anything that made excellent, near masterpiece, or masterpiece. So the first 2 albums I'm going to talk about are in my very good tier, and the last 2 are just in my good tier. Now, this album by Windwaker is one where I heard 2 singles ahead of time. I enjoyed them, so that's what made me put this on my list to check out. I also heard an EP they dropped earlier in the year that I enjoyed. This album by Windwaker has really catchy hooks, but also has intense breakdowns, guitar riffs, harsh vocals. It features 3 different kinds of vocals. It features clean singing, screaming, and rapping vocals. And on the clean singing front, it features some parts that are heavily processed and sound like auto-tune is in use, and then other parts that are more natural clean singing. My favorite track on the album on first listen was Sirens. Next up, I want to talk about another metalcore one by In Heart's Wake. It's called Incarnation, and this is also an Australian band, but this is their 6th album, and this is more on the intensely heavy side of metalcore. It's a bit more straightforward and doesn't blend as many genres as the previous one by Windwaker, but In Heart's Wake will satisfy those metalcore fans that are looking for something more intense, more heavy, more brutal. For this one, I heard 3 early release singles ahead of the album release. I enjoyed them all. That's what made me put this on my list to check out. But I haven't heard any other album by In Heart's Wake before this, and I hadn't heard any other album other than the EP by Windwaker ahead of time, so I haven't heard Windwaker's first album. So this is my first exposure to these bands, but this whole album by In Heart's Wake is just a solid, no-nonsense, intensely heavy metalcore album with great riffs, intense screams, and lots of energy. So if you like the sounds of that, check it out. Next up on my list is probably the only hip-hop album I'll listen to this year, which is Eminem and the Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grâce. This is the 12th album by this very famous American rapper. I used to be a big fan of Eminem. He was my favorite artist when I was 13 years old, right before I got into System of a Down, then Protest the Hero, then the prog metal, prog rock, metalcore, and post-hardcore scenes. And then I pretty much abandoned rap music at that point. But I was curious to check this out for nostalgia's sake. I was guessing I wouldn't really like it. Upon listening to it, you can still hear how Eminem delivers his lyrics and how he's among the best of all time in this rap game. The lyrical themes on this album mostly focus on him complaining about the potential of being canceled for saying things that aren't politically correct, which I'm sure is a real concern for him, because he does say a lot of things that could get him in trouble. But it does sound a little bit like a rich, famous guy complaining that he can't say whatever he wants, but then proceeding to say whatever he wants and being totally fine, still continuing to make a ton of money and getting a ton of praise and respect and fame. So he definitely sounds a bit like an entitled, whiny man-child from time to time. But that's not to say that all the lyrics are bad and lame. Like his rhymes are good. There's some kind of funny jokes in there from time to time. They're delivered really well and with wit. But obviously, you have to be ready for some of the shock factor of Eminem's lyrics, which he does mostly as jokes, but may be offensive to some. Like he does things like making fun of little people and other handicapped people and more. Um, so he definitely takes shots at minority groups that you wouldn't expect people to make fun of. But I'd say if you're a fan of Eminem, you're probably going to like this. But if you weren't a fan before this probably won't make you one. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the Radicant and their EP called We Ascend. This is a band from the UK, and it's atmospheric ambient electronic rock with progressive rock and some metal influences in there. And this one I'm also putting in my good tier, just like the Eminem release. Not quite good enough to make it to very good. But this is former Anathema singer Vincent Cavanaugh's new project. So if you're a fan of Anathema, I think you'll like this. Also for fans of Porcupine Tree and the Pineapple Thief, but think about that, but plus some more electronic influence. Very nice, relaxing, atmospheric tracks. Nothing too engaging or exciting. It's all very slow and down tempo and relaxing. But if you're looking for that kind of music, We Ascend by the Radicant is a good one to check out. And that's it for my first impressions on these 4 albums that came out on July 12th. What do you think of these releases? Let me know down in the comments. And is there anything else that came out recently that you think I'll enjoy? Also let me know. And stay tuned for next time. Peace out.